My name's Kevin. I'm one of the climbing flow coaches. Today's video is going to be the first in our fear of falling series. We're going to be talking about what is fear,
I'm scared,
how it affects us, and what is the fear of falling really. What is fear?
I'm scared.
Sorry, I've got you.
Spot me.
Spot
me.
I'm watching
You got me.
It's not that bad.
Fear is a feeling induced by a threat or danger. This can be a real threat, i.e. the result can be injury or death, or a perceived threat. Now, it doesn't matter whether it's a real threat or a perceived threat, we feel exactly the same things and our brains will process it in exactly the same way. Here comes the sciencey bit. Try and follow. It is really interesting. Allegra, wake up. There are lots of different parts in the brain that are part of processing fear. It will become clear as to why I'm explaining this to you. So you can see from the picture here that we have something called the thalamus. That part of the brain sends sensory information, so what we see and what we feel and what we hear sends that information to the sensory cortex, where that information gets processed and translated and then gets sent to the hippocampus. And the hippocampus part of the brain compares that information to any long-term memories we have stored there. From the hippocampus, the information gets sent to the amygdala, which is the fear station of the brain, and that's where long-term fear memories are held. So that information gets compared to any long-term fear memories we have, and then from the amygdala, the information gets sent to the hypothalamus. So the hypothalamus is linked in with the nervous system. Now there are three parts to the nervous system. Now I'm going to focus on two of them. So we've got the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Now the sympathetic nervous system is the kind of the fight and flight response that we feel when we're scared.
I'm scared.
And the parasympathetic nervous system is the rest and digest part of our nervous system. Now, we're going to focus on the rest part. So research has been done to look at these different parts of the brain, and different people, depending on their biological makeup and different experiences that they've had throughout their childhood and into adulthood, will mean that these different parts of your brain are more or less sensitive. Now we need to know that about ourselves to figure out whether we are, in certain situations, will be more sensitive or potentially less sensitive. Now, if we move into a situation where fear is involved, if we are more sensitive, we need to know to try and work with a manageable level in whichever activity we are trying to achieve in climbing. So due to these genetic differences, or the differences through the experiences that we've had that have shaped different parts in our brain, we will be more or less sensitive to fear in certain situations. Which means that if we take the fear of falling, for example, and we are looking into fall practice, we need to understand how our brains work in that situation. So if we are someone who is a little bit more sensitive,
what is that darn thing gonna say?
then we need to build that kind of awareness. We need to think about how we are feeling in the moment, and if our nervous system, so if the sympathetic nervous system, so the fight and flight response kicks in sooner, we need to be aware of that we're not operating at that level. So when it comes to fall practice and the fear of falling, we need to operate at a manageable level. Now that was not manageable. Let's take the example of fingerboarding. Now, if 1 week we can hang our body weight off a fingerboard, we wouldn't the following week assume we can hang our body weight plus 100 kilos off the same fingerboard.
You can do it!
Because we're going to get injured. So why do we assume when dealing with fear that we should just be able to deal with it? Fear of falling is not a bad thing. Oh yeah. It just shows you where your limit is, and it gives you information about where to work. So is the fear of falling really the fear of falling? Is the fear of falling just the fear of falling? Or is it the fear of heights? Maybe it's the fear of injury or death. Maybe it's the fear of being out of control.
Can't do it. Can't do it.
Maybe it's the fear of not being in control. For example, not being in control of the rope. Maybe it's the fear that the belayer may not be able to hold a fall. Maybe it's the fear of failure. For example, not being able to complete a route or a move, or possibly social comparison.
Why do I fucking climb?
Maybe it's the fear of fear itself, or maybe it's the fear of the sensation of falling. So, is the fear of falling the combination of all of the above? I think it's going to be different for different people, and the only way we find that out is through building self-awareness. So the fear of falling is going to be a combination of all of the above, and for different people it's going to be different things. So it's not just the fear of falling. So let's quickly talk about fall practice. I think fall practice is a great idea. Just be aware of the level of fear or anxiety that you might be feeling. You need to be operating at a level that is manageable to yourself. So if you know that one of your climbing sessions you'll be practicing falls, i.e. fall practice, you might build up some anxiety before you even go to your climbing session. You might even build up anxiety before you climb up the route, knowing that you will be doing some fall practice. Now the difference between fear and anxiety is that fear is felt in the moment.
I'm scared.
And anxiety is a build-up up to that moment, for example. So if we're doing fall practice, we might build up anxiety before we even start climbing. If we know that we're going to take falls at a certain height, we may build up anxiety up to that point, and anxiety will have the same effect in our brain, so it will slowly but surely kickstart that fight and flight response in us as we gain height, as we know that we're going to let go and take some falls. Slowly but surely the fight and flight response starts to kick in as we gain height, and it becomes more and more apparent to the moment that we have to let go, where fear kicks in as well. So we've got the combination of anxiety and fear and it might be too much for us. So it's building that self-awareness of what we are feeling in the moment. With full practice, always start super easy and build up the falls gradually. But over the course of these Fear of Falling series, everything will become apparent. Our next video is going to be on building self-awareness and habits. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Press the subscribe button. Press the like button. Stay tuned for more on the Fear of Falling series. And we'll see you next time.